Okay, hey y'all, we're back with another episode of The Core. This is Sami.
I'm
Serwah.
Awoe.
We love it, we love it. Okay, we got Awoe and Serwah coming in at the right time. And then finally, we have...
I'm Blossom.
Perfect. All right, we're back with y'all. We want to address something, Blossom and I, we've made it officially, 15 months since graduation, I think, starting our 16th month. So definitely over that year mark. And we have Serwah and Awoe, who definitely transitioned out these last 3 months, about to start grad school in the coming weeks. And so today we wanted to speak with you all about how did we succeed, what it means to be successful in a PWI environment. So to kick things off, the first question would be, how do we as a group, as a collective of 4 people, what do we define as success?
Sammy, can you define PWI?
Oh, definitely, for sure, true. So PWI is predominantly white institution, just reflecting significant part of your student population by percentage would be white people.
All right, awesome. I could start us off.
Rush.
You said the question is
Perfect.
what do we define as success? I think
Yeah.
that like everyone defines it a little bit differently. It could be, everyone comes from like different circumstances, and so it could be that you made it through and you graduated and it was a tough 4 or 5 years, however long it took. It could be you found a job and like you found like your dream job or whatever that looked like, or that you got into grad school or med school or law school. For me, success was definitely like making it through, but also having the experience that I did. I came into college with my own like I don't know, just not that I was narrow-minded, but I feel like I'm leaving a lot more aware of social issues, and I think that being in college really helped me pay attention to stuff just outside of like myself and my family, but also to like the world around me. And I'm really, really thankful for that experience, more so than just like, oh, I passed my classes, or I'm going to grad school. I'm very proud of that too, and like I'm very much like
You should be.
I'm very proud of that
Yes.
too. But like,
Uh,
yeah, but it was a lot of it was like the experiences.
mm,
I think for me, the way I define success has changed over the years. Um, so I know in one of our previous episodes, we talked about great expectations. So what our parents expected of us as we grew up, and I think for me, success as a younger woman, was based off of meeting those expectations. So getting those good grades in school, getting to a good institution for undergrad, getting scholarships to go to those schools, and like maintaining this sort of like good girl persona that a lot of African parents want you to have, like going to like Christian, yada yada yada. I think for me now, especially after graduating, going through 4 years of like one of the most self-reflective periods of my time, um, I've realized that for me, success is really just about feeling joy, and just feeling happiness. And that happiness sometimes may be from external triggers, but for me, I think I find the most joy when I'm just happy internally based off of like my own sort of like goals I set for myself or my own expectations, if that makes sense. That's not based off of like others and what, my mother thinks or what society like considers to be like the sort of milestones you have to meet to be considered successful, which is like, getting a job. Well, yeah. That's normal expectation. But like, buying a house or like stuff like that, like that's not really my idea of success anymore. It's right now it's just like feeling joy and being happy.
Gotcha. We love it. We love it. How about you, Blossom? Do you feel you resonate with Awe and Serwah?
yeah,
1,000,000%. I think for me, I, yeesh, I mean, yeah. I think a lot of like you got to go back all the way to thinking about. I'm sorry. In college, like I always said, it's not always. At the time, it definitely was a very like, okay, I need to pass my classes. This is how I will succeed in a very objective sense, right? Like this is like you succeeded in college if you graduated. I guess. I mean,
yeah, because C's get degrees.
C's do get degrees, and like even if you've not like done A's and like all A's or like you 4.0 GPA, like the bare minimum is to graduate. If you did that, then you succeeded, right? At that goal. So I mean, shit. But now I think as Sammy said, like 15, 16 months out of college or whatever, it's like defining success. I think I really like what you said, Serwah, like finding joy in what you do. And I think that's what life is, and that's how you succeed at life. Truly enjoying your life, truly enjoying what you do, and all the decisions that you've made to not only make hopefully you happy, but also people around you, or at least for you to be in a good headspace and a good comfortability about what you've done and continue to be with your life.
Yeah. Like it makes me think and like thinking since I think a lot of like this school year, like my senior year, and hearing Blossom say about having been more than a year out of undergrad makes me feel like or like remember that what some things that like I really stressed really heavily about like didn't really matter, like some exams that I was like dang, like I don't know, like all the stress that led up to it and then like the result of not doing well, like that didn't matter. Like you got through college, and like no one's ever gonna ask you like, okay, if they ask you, then like this is their own problem and they need to deal with it. But like if someone asks you like, well, like what was your GPA? Like no, that doesn't matter. Like you graduated college, and like this is like the proud achievement. And so very much like not just like the specific external validation, like oh, like you got straight A's. No, like that, like what did you get out of that experience? Like you get straight A's, but then not know how to like just keep to yourself or not know how to be social and like all this other stuff, then like is it really successful to all that stuff.
I will say a little story if you guys don't mind. I failed at one specific I think I just remember to this day, and I'm just like, dang, what if and all this stuff, because I feel like to your point, Awoe, like all these social successes that you want to have and learn in your life and experiences, you shouldn't put academics before those, because that I don't know if that's a real success, right? So anyway, I for those of y'all who don't know, our listeners and viewers, we as Hopkins students, as Black Hopkins students, typically annually have a black, what is it called? A black ball. I don't know what they call it. The dance every year that the
from BSU
your
formal.
face. The BSU formal. Oh my God, edit that out. I was like, what is the black ball? Yeah, we have the BSU formal, the Black Student Union formal every year. Anyway, long story short, I just remember the weekend it happened. I was like, okay, I can only go to one party. I think it was on a Saturday that weekend. And my freshman year, I went to the party on Friday instead of Saturday, and because I had an exam on Monday. I was like, well, I can't go. I'm not going to go. All of my friends, every single one of them went. Yeah. It was on Sam. You went. You remember? I mean, I don't, but no, because everyone went, and then it's crazy because like I think that was one of the last years that it was like the funnest year, the biggest year that we all had out like for like a lot of us. We hung out. Squad deep was like 30 deep, like at least a freshman at the time. And I don't think any of my other friends ever went again, except for like, and to me, like begging them to go because I'd never gone, like I think until my senior year. Yeah. And so I was just like, dang, like everyone keeps placing me there. Like, oh, Blossom, you remember freshman year BSU formal? I'm like, no, I don't. So it's like those things I think you can never get back. And I still don't think I did well on the exam anyway. So it was just dumb. Like, it was just
what did
like,
you remember? What was the reason?
What was the reason?
Because I just remember that whole, I think it was some dumbass econ class too. So I just remember that whole, it was a struggle my freshman year. I remember like, I didn't come to college and social life, all that dumb shit. So like, I just know. Anyway, long story short, again, I think that there are different successes and different avenues of success. Obviously, you should prioritize academics and in some cases social activities and shared social experiences. There has to be a balance, though. I think, at least for me, freshman year and like a good amount of sophomore year, I was not prioritizing social stuff, and I was just like,
No, for sure. What I'm hearing is like all these things fluctuate. What we give meaning changes because of where we are in life. Because I remember the infamous read your books for any opportunity we were thinking about, whether they be, boys or girls, anything relationship. Right, study your books, open your books, use your books, your books. Blossom, you're one of these people I remember famously. Any mention of fun, we were just like, please, whether it be the dictionary, open your book, read your book, do not do this. Because that was crucial, right? Because we were trying to do these summer internships and they unfortunately had a cutoff, whether it be your GPA, did you do well? So I don't want to be like, oh, after 4 years, these things didn't matter, because that's how we got these freshman internships, these sophomore internships. So they did matter for the time, for sure. Right, exactly, right? So definitely these viewers, please don't say in 4 years this doesn't matter. I think it's definitely about increments. These things are important. And I think right now I would assess college by maybe 3 buckets of like that personal growth that Awoe was mentioning, these experiences that Blossom is bringing up, as well as, academics, like did you do well enough to get to your next step? Did you graduate in a 4-year timeline, a 5-year timeline? Did you get into grad school, for example? And then maybe that financial planning sentiment that Serwah was touching on. Maybe you don't want to buy a house, but did you put yourself in the right position where you're making a certain income that meets your lifestyle that you want to have, or that skill set that you want to have? Where Blossom and I are regularly talking about, where do we relocate? How do we buy a house? Who can we contact? And I think everyone's saying, like, it's a balance. Like, did you leave an institution that didn't look like you with a sense of acuity on these different topics, right? Where Blossom is, releasing content, check out our YouTube page, Blossom Taiwo, where she's talking about saving amount of money by a certain age. Are we talking about exactly what Awoe is, meeting different people, having these different relationships and leaving with a stronger sense of self and knowledge? And then where Serwah was talking about, or where Serwah was like, life is putting her in a, public health grad program in a different big city. So that's, I think, success, all these categories. And I think the next big question that'd be relevant, where does success fit in between surviving and thriving in a college environment? Because I remember freshman year, I was just like, wow, GPA was the enemy of all types of progress. Blossom knows this intimately, where I was just like, wow, this is just not working out. And where I really had to look at opportunities that are typically like out of the college landscape to really balance things up, beef up my resume, and make me still stand out. But what does that look like for everyone? Surviving versus thriving. I'm gonna start picking.
I think that similar to like our definition of success, I think it changes as your time in college goes on. Well, at least for me, it did. I think very much coming into college, and everyone there's this like negative like aura in the. I mean, everyone's like really nice for the most part, but there's still this like pressure. Yeah, most part. But there's still like this pressure to do well, but the thing is, like, everyone has different backgrounds, and like not everyone had an opportunity to take AP classes in high school, or like levels of, and so like it feels like it can very much feel like you're just trying to survive and hang in with everyone. It feels like, how do these people know this? Like, we learned the same thing in class, but yet like somehow this, I don't know, it just doesn't feel equal, and just like everyone has different privileges. And so early on, it definitely feels like surviving. And I think for like, depending like your path, the path that you're on, I think like that definitely affects it. Like I have seen like a lot of my pre-med friends who have like every semester, it's always something insane that they have to do. They're like, oh, I need 5,000 hours of like office hospital time. Like, oh wow, like I know you have class too. That's a lot. It's just everyone. It looks different, but I think after like halfway through college, like I really started thinking about my future and my own mental health, and I'm like, it's not enough to just try and survive, because like you can't really like hang in here if you're just comparing yourself to everyone, and there's always someone who's gonna be getting the best grades. You can't like be doing that, and you just have to like focus on yourself and like growing in your own experiences and saying like, where can I like thrive? Like can I thrive in my major? Can I thrive in this department? Or like in this like sphere of things. Like for me, like it was the Center for Social Concern, and like being in that space where I could like go and work in the Baltimore community. Like that was like my space, or like in a varsity, like a Christian community on campus. Like that's like my spot. Like I can feel I can really vibe in the space, and I wouldn't put myself, I'm not pre-med. Like I'm not gonna put myself in that space where I'm like struggling, So I guess that's sort of what it looked like for me.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Awoe was just speaking on, I feel like it is very easy in college to be in a constant state of survival if you are comparing yourself to others, because you always, like I always say, you're always trying to be better than the next person, but if the next person is better than you all the time, it's like, damn, I can never do anything right, So I think like once you start to realize, okay, this is a space that I don't feel like it's best for me. Maybe it's a certain class, maybe it's your major. I feel like some people have a hard time recognizing the fact that sometimes your major is not right for them. You can let it go. College is a time for self-discovery.
Yeah.
And when you find yourself like not enjoying waking up and going to class every single day, every week, like you really need to self-reflect and decide, like, is this a path that's right for me? What exactly is it that is keeping me in this state of survival, And, reevaluate that and decide what changes need to be done in your life. And I think once you do that self-reflection and you recognize those obstacles or those triggers or whatever, that is when you can start to thrive, because then you can create tailored approaches to whatever that situation is and find your way out of it and find things that interest you. And if you don't want to change what you're doing, maybe it's adding new things that bring you joy, and maybe it's going out into a city with your friends every weekend, or it's trying new food, or stuff like that. Just make sure to self-evaluate and realize at what state why am I in this constant state of survival, and once you do that, you can figure out how to thrive.
Yeah.
I do have a question. If you, Awoe and Serwah, can answer it. Can you tailor your response ever so slightly, or what tailored response would you say for people who are like going into online learning? Like obviously you guys kind of got booted out of school. Yeah, in terms of college, because Sami and I didn't experience that, right? We just online work. That's normal-ish to a certain degree, but obviously like with college is the experience of like, oh, I want to do this, like you said, Serwah, going out with my friends at weekends or doing this, doing that, like having these experiences. How has that adapted to obviously the condition of state that we're living in, and how would y'all say one should thrive in that space versus survive and just do their online screenings, Zooms, meeting classes, whatever they do?
I feel like I might not be the best person to ask, because I saw this one tweet last time that was talking about the student in me died in March.
Yeah.
It's dead. It's
gone. She said, I give advice, I don't take my advice.
Basically.
And also, just because I don't know when this episode is going to go out, it's September. And I haven't started my classes quite yet. It's September 6th. So I don't really have any tips right now, because obviously I actually have to pay attention now that I'm in grad school. It was a little different because last semester, first of all, I was a senior. I had all my requirements done. It was pass fail. I really had no incentive to really be a good student. But once we figure it out, we'll let y'all know. But right now, I have no tips for you. I'm so sorry.
I'm weak. Awoe.
Yeah. yeah, so I think intentionality is important, and like you have to be even more intentional with like what you want to make of it as best as you can. Like before, like if you're on campus, they'd be like, leave the Hopkins bubble, like don't always stay on campus, and like you have to be intentional about wanting to go out with your friends and like doing stuff, you know, and like not just making it all about school to sort of give you that experience. But now that we're all sort of at home, like whether you're in an apartment by yourself or with your family where you grew up, you have to be even more intentional about like communicating with other people, like, and trying to make friends in that way. And I'd say like try and make it fun for yourself at home. Like if you have the means, like decorate your office, you know, and like make it a space that you want to be in, you know, like go all out as much as you can, you know, like really go out. Like I already have like my Amazon wish list like all set, like for like a whiteboard and like a monitor, like I don't know, like get everything all set up so that you can like have fun in the space. But then I'll say like that's like the bare minimum. The rest of it you really have to like figure it out on your own. And and it comes through experience, because like Serwah was saying, like for us when it happened, we were basically done already.
Yeah.
And like like I remember I had like two papers during the semester before finals, and like reading those papers, reading to then write those papers, oh man, I was just like
drag.
Yeah. But you'll figure it out, because they say like innovation and all that really comes through like these hard times, and before you know it, like you all will like figure out the best way to thrive in this space. And probably like I don't know, by the time you graduate, you might be in a better position than we are. Who knows?
Yeah.
So,
And you can put this over your kid's head and tell them, back in my days, I went to school
day.
online and I survived. No, I thrived, not survived. I thrived.
Right. It sounds like some of us are ready to replace our parents and the things that they say, like, oh, I used to walk 10 miles for school. Now they say I used to go to school with a virus. But I think it's all about like taking power and control. And to your point, Blossom, I think this I hate saying this goddamn phrase, moment that we're living in is just another, you know, inflaming example of like, you really are the one taking these courses, planning a 4-year plan or a 5-year plan, 3-year plan, what have you. Like this is your time, literally. And now you're being told you have to do this, you know, thousands of miles away. Or if you are one of the unfortunate students who are duped to come back to campus for it to be remote, now you can't leave your dorm. But it's just like, you really do control the course of your future. And you have to consider it in light of everything. This is an institution. Not everything's fun and games. I'm talking to my sister right now who's starting her senior year of high school. She's thinking, I'm going to Stanford. So shout out to Awoe. She loves Stanford already for undergrad. And she thinks it's going to be this magical place. I'm going to meet my friends when I move in. All this. I'm like, that could possibly happen. Or, you know, I'd better you like have some things that you don't want to let go by chance, and things that you know you need, and carry those values and be ready to like change for example, if something were to happen beyond your control. So for students who are still navigating undergrad, this is a time where you need to know, like, if, for example, if you were like me in Seattle, schools in Baltimore, is Seattle a place where you want to stay permanently because that's where you're going to be for this school for the rest of your school year? Consider where you're going to be living even after undergrad, something that I didn't consider when I was back in 2015 as a freshman with Blossom. These are just another all of these examples of this is really your life that you ultimately control. And we typically had this conversation, you know, outside of, you know, all this can apply to an HBCU or any other demographic of a school. What are the unique things that, you know, a PWI adds for us, a predominantly white institution, while we're dealing with these things?
I'd say like resources. I don't know what my sister goes to Howard, but I haven't myself, like, I didn't go to an HBCU, so I don't know what the resources and such look like. But at PWI, especially like ones like Hopkins, like tons and tons of resources all over the place, and like the ability to like study abroad and like all kinds of stuff. It's like, it's really insane. Like, for example, one that's like really personal, like important to me was the DMC. It's like we had a digital media center where we were able to rent out literally any kind of equipment for free as a student. So cameras or like video games or speakers, projectors, like you name it, you can like rent it out. And every other week or so, I would always go rent out like a camera. And like, I don't know where else you could do that. You know, I mean, maybe you could do that at HBCUs or like other schools. But for me, like, I was like, this is great. Like, I have this access to this, and like, I can use any software. I can use like any of the Adobe Creative Cloud. And like, I'm like, this is great. Like, I don't have to pay for any of this. And so like, that's one thing that's definitely something like not take away, but like you benefit from during this time. I know, Sarah, you traveled abroad a bunch and like
quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily think that is something specific to an HBCU, but you are right that we probably do have a little bit more resources than most. As like Hopkins just recently, I think it was 2 years ago, got $1 billion endowment from, is it $2 billion?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
it was 1.8.
It was 1.8.
Yeah.
No way.
But now Daddy Bloomberg is giving that money to HBCUs too. So why Stevens out maybe
exactly. But I think for me, the
schools.
one.
Select
She said.
I believe it was 4 medical schools. I think I forget the 800 students, but yeah.
Yeah.
There were specific numbers attached to it, but yes.
But him and
doesn't equal out, but yeah.
business. It doesn't to $2 billion to one institution. You're right, for undergrads. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Where was I going with this?
We don't have
yes. So I think the one thing that has been specific to my experience at a PWI is I think for most people who go to college, you do get radicalized. But I think there's a specific type of radicalization you go through as a minority in a PWI, especially in a PWI that takes up space in a Black community. There's a lot of things you go through, not just because of your experiences, but also realizing that you have a certain level of privilege in this city, in this place where a lot of other Black men, women, children don't have the same opportunities as you do. And your institution is a part of the problem, you know, or may not necessarily be using their platform, their money to help those communities. And I think going to a PWI like Hopkins really I feel like if anything really pushed me more towards public health than anything. I really do believe that if I didn't go to Hopkins, I might have stayed on the doctor route. But I think being at Hopkins and then seeing like the effects that the institution has had for decades in the city of Baltimore has really like shaped the way I view things and the way I see politics and economics and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think if I were to jump in, I definitely hear Awoe's point. I think being PWI, being particularly ones in Maryland, I don't think we have enough time to discuss this, but there was a lawsuit by, I think, an affiliation of 4 HBCUs in the state that sued the state of Maryland based off of, funding and allocation. I'm not sure if Johns Hopkins was listed as one of these institutions that are benefited. I think it was a University of Maryland, Baltimore City campus. But that's just to highlight there are allocation differences, particularly within Maryland, the state that holds Johns Hopkins, the same school that I think employs the most
60%.
people in the state. Yes.
60%.
Oh, really? I think Blossom is at Walmart.
I don't know.
Okay. I believe, but let's say it's definitely one of the top players.
They be pushing the narratives.
Definitely, but a significant employer in the state. One institution in a city, Serwah was getting to, that has been decimated in many ways. And in terms of public health, we talk about it as like a white L, black butterfly. terminology would describe the discrepancies, differences in life expectancy, differences in health conditions that are separated just by city blocks, by your zip code. We can see this again, private police, something that was a topic from my junior year up, and I think your sophomore year, both of you, Awoe and Serwah, moving forward, where in terms of being a student and you wanted to succeed, you wanted to do things, you wanted to, open your books, study your books, read your books, you also had to pull up to, the terrace by Brody Cafe for a demonstration that Shisam and the BSU had organized, or Students Against Private Police had organized. Did you want to go to Annapolis, the state capital, to give testimony? Did you want to write testimony and give it, through Google Forms for Chisholm and other people to read? These are the responsibilities, or responsibilities that we consider for particularly Black students who went to Hopkins, and things that people had to balance out for themselves. So I think, in addition to those benefits that Awoe had mentioned, resource allocation opportunities on paper, there is a lot of stress on, not only where I fit in, but like, what am I going to give my time to and develop? Africana Studies is still not a department of itself. Freshman year Blossom, I don't know if you remember, BSU had organized a whole forum about not just about it, but it included it. Our president was like, I'm Canadian. I don't know what race relations are in this country. And to that day, in terms of radicalization, Serwah, we were just like, well, we peeped it, we know it. Literally, alumni from decades ago were like, this is the same place. And I think a professor had given us perspective saying like Hopkins Africana Studies Center is like one of the most youngest across the country. And all these things, right? And if we had time to actually put down our resource and investigate, those are the, tacit responsibilities or considerations that Black students have to go through. And as well as something Iffy, loves to bring up, shout out to Iffy, slave quarters on that campus.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just like...
It even says it on the signs.
It
they
does.
Have the signs around campus that are like, they used to sell slaves on this beach right here that you're about to go lay on a picnic. Like, you're like, like, really?
And so, like, even though Johns Hopkins himself may have had this abolitionist background, or like the campus wants to have the history, like we're owning up to it, maybe you don't want to go to a school like that, period, right? And so if people are listening to us, watching us, considering college, maybe, consider that too. Like, where is your institution, been in the course of history, right? Yeah. I think 1970s was when women were allowed to attend.
This is very recently.
Very recently in comparison. Add Black people, I think maybe just 2 decades even before that, potentially. I remember we, as Black students, remember a particular alumnus who was the first Black student to be on campus. So it's just like, damn, I think I would have considered this more, if I had this hindsight, had this information.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And just briefly, in addition to that, as Sami was saying, it's not just being, if you're Black and at a PWI, oftentimes it's not just the academics. It is, you oftentimes will be one of few Black people in your classes or your major. Blossom has some experience being like the only Black woman in the econ department, and as a result, like, people sort of like, you're also like the face also in a way, like, people turn to you, like, we never ask for it, but like, they'll also like, whenever something race related comes up, they'll turn to you and they'll be like, what's the answer? You're like, no, like,
let me pick your brain. Don't.
And whenever something, like, they're like, we need to make a diversity inclusion task force, and they'll be like, Black person, like, then that's more work on you. Like, no, I want to focus on my studies or all these things. And what we're trying to say here is, like, being at a PWI means, like, we're fighting against institutions, like, structures that are against Black people, or like just people of color, really. Meaning, like, you're fighting for your place, like, you're constantly like saying like, hey, I belong here. Let me focus on this. Like, whether it is like, we can go more into that, but we could, yes.
Definitely, for sure. In the last maybe 2 minutes as a wrap up, maybe we can share, let's see, we've discussed, how we personally have valued success, right, after we've graduated thus far. We've explained how these things have changed. Freshman year, you could be valuing something important. Now that you graduate, you're like, wow, that wasn't really anything. Or you said like, wow, I'm happy that I really focused on that because that led to X, Y, and Z. Then we touched on, how as Black students, you have to pay attention to like, okay, I come here, I pay my money here. This is like, there's a sense of legacy and like belonging. Did I really just invest my 4 years into an institution where a president is gonna buck up to a student who's like, why are security guards being paid less than a student working at the library? Right? Where again, slave quarters are on that campus, X, Y, and Z. A center is still not a department, where all these scandals of police department was being called upon, all these things. Maybe if everyone wants to say one final thing about, addressing, because we are Black people specifically, how you would talk to Black people, a Black person, still in college now. What's maybe one piece of advice about succeeding wherever they are?
I can start. I think for me, it was very simply finding my community. And for me, it was the African Student Association. That is what really has been my home ground, my anchor for, my anchor for a long time at Hopkins. Also, there's the reason why I laugh at the anchor is that there's a Black Bible study group on campus. And that was also helpful for me in the second half of my time at Hopkins. So yeah, just finding a community, finding something or a group of people that you really connect with, and those are the people who are probably going to take you through those 4 years or however long in your undergrad.
I think for me, oh, sorry, Awoe, do you
No,
want to?
go ahead.
Okay. In terms of succeeding and thriving at PWI or really any college, I think just remember that you're paying to go there. Like they literally need you in their presence. They need you for their tuition, their bills, their livelihood, or whatever. So basically they work for you. And you need to make sure that that college is working for you in any regard that you need. So if you need any type of mental health services, you better make sure that that college is providing it for you.
Yep.
If you need any type of physical services, you better make sure that college is providing it for you. If you need anything, I mean, like, it doesn't make sense that you're paying to go there and they are going to be treating you like poop. If you feel bad, if people are being racist, okay, Dean, how are you? Come and get that person out of my presence or out of my classes or something like that, anything. And even if it's like a teacher, anything. So I think that just making sure that you utilize all the resources, and even we talked about study abroad or just like even the Visual Media Center, the DMC, if there are outlets and things that you need and that you want to pursue as a person or you want to try, make sure that your college is kind of funding it both economically and either socially or politically or even in some regards maybe environmentally or whatever have you. And so I think that might be another foundation of being able to make sure that you have these experiences and you go ahead and make sure that you are thriving in whatever you do, because in fact that your college is backing what you want to do, and that will bring you joy and potentially like these experiences and make you hopefully overall happy and again thrive.
Yeah, definitely. Like I believe everything Blossom says. Like you should believe everything she says. Like that is so true. And oh man, I had it, but then I'm losing it. Oh yeah, understand that like college is this very interesting time in our lives, like 18 to 22, 23-year-old like time. Yeah, like don't just make it about the academics. Like definitely like try and like learn and grow yourself as a person, not just don't just learn how to study better, because for a lot of life you're not going to be like studying, like you're going to be living. And so like learn how to interact with people, learn about your own privileges, your own identity, and what you can contribute to the world. Whether you contributing means like research on like cancer or whatever, like, yeah, sure, go and kill it. No, not kill it. Like go and, own it, and kill it in that way. But like, it doesn't have to just be like, that's how you contribute to the world. Like just go and learn how to become a citizen of the world. And yeah, that's really all I'd say. Like college is a special place to do that.
And then finally, I would say, I like the idea of legacy.
Puts us in a perspective of what do you want to be remembered as? And not only that, what do you want to leave behind? It can be about, do I want to be part of this organization? And for example, Serwah crossing a Greek letter organization. She wanted that to be a part of her legacy. It could be about, do I want to invest my time in pursuing this, opportunity to develop something for someone else, for another population. It really is a great framework, I think, about, dividing your time, your effort, and your values all together. And it really does incentivize you to look at yourself as a person. And as Blossom was saying, these people are being paid egregiously through you being there. And they have to work for you. And even my sister, as young as she may be, on paper, she said to a professor one time, I don't know why you're talking to me like that. You're supposed to do this. And I said, wow, imagine if you had that energy. If I had that energy, I'd have been like up and down that counseling center. So I don't care about my GPA. Your job is to help me get something. So do it. And I think if anything, just have that attitude, that energy. No one can take that from you. Yeah. And with that, unless someone wants to add something, I think we just wrapped up another great episode about how we succeeded and how you can succeed too in a college environment, especially at a PWI. Thank you again for listening and stay tuned for our next episode.